Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'm going to turn on caption.
Okay, welcome everyone to another special Members Matter meeting for the Automated Material Handling System updates. I'm Colleen Dettenmeier, the Delivery and Facilities Director for IHLS. And before we begin with the presentation today, I'm going to turn it over to Kate Kite for a few housekeeping items.
Okay, I just turned off the waiting room. I'm going to give everybody just a brief moment to connect with us. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I'm Kate Kite, the Continuing Education Coordinator here for IHLS, and we're so glad that you're here today. So everyone is joining us through Zoom. So there are a couple things I ask just to make sure that everyone has the best experience possible. Please make sure that your microphone is muted and that your screen is turned off. In order for us to enter in attendance for this event, we do ask that you either have your first name and last name or your first name and your library name as your Zoom name. And then finally, we are making a big change to how the questions during the presentation will be entered. You will see down at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom screen, there is a Q&A button. And that Q&A will bring up a little text box for you to answer questions. We are not going to be using the chat for questions this time. Please submit your questions through that Q&A button. I have that open on my screen instead of the chat. There are a couple different options. We can either answer through answer through typing, or else Colleen will answer it live. So in fact, I just got one that I will answer live. We can't unmute and ask. During the Q&A portion, and Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, whenever we have time at the end, we do ask you that you raise your hand or give us some kind of a signal that you want to unmute and ask the question. That way, we don't have it's a little bit more organized. We want to make sure everyone is heard. And then sometimes we do have questions that have come in the chat earlier. So we prefer that you type the questions, or you can even type in there, I want to ask a question, later live, because we just really want to make sure everyone gets a chance to ask anything that they have. So anything that I am forgetting, Colleen, before?
Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, excellent.
All right, so today what we'll cover, we've got the automated material handling system details, the project timeline, the revised delivery guidelines, barcode duplication details, information on those intergovernmental agreements, and then I'll go over the questions that were previously submitted ahead of time, and then we'll leave time for that live Q&A. Okay, so for the live Q&A, sorry, I just realized my notes aren't changing with me. There it goes. So the AMH passed. Now what? On May 29th, IHLS emailed a special board meeting recap, including the information about our upcoming project. So all share members should ensure that the key staff have been signed up for the future communications. You should make plans for the outside barcode placement if your library does not have the RFID for Polaris, and then review the project timeline for these key dates. And we'll review all of this today in this presentation. So for future communications, make sure that your staff who are involved in the delivery process are marked as a system delivery contact, an L2. So we've got specific instructions for this on the member connection, but then in this PowerPoint, when we send it out, I've included the links directly here on that page. So you can just click there to learn details on how to do that. And then of course, make sure all your stakeholders who would be involved in this project are signed up for the IHLS member connection newsletter. For the outside barcode plans, all new items should be, Kate, maybe correct me at any time if I'm on the wrong side, because for some reason, the screen I'm sharing is not changing whenever I'm changing my notes. I have to do both. So sorry about that. For all but outside barcodes, all new items should be processed with outside barcodes going forward. So the recommended placement is the front cover, top left horizontally, But anywhere on the outside of the item is acceptable for the purposes of the AMH, only please do not put them on the spine. The barcodes should be printed with a thermal transfer process. So some libraries may use a direct thermal printing method for your barcodes. And we've learned that that direct thermal printing could cause issues with the barcodes fading in the sunlight. So if you're not using a printer for your barcodes that uses the thermal transfer process, you may want to consider switching. And then for all existing items, we'll talk about those duplication details later in the presentation today. All right, for the timeline. In July, the key dates here that we'll cover, starting now, share members should start placing your barcodes externally on all new materials. At the end of this month or the beginning of next month, as soon as we get those details finalized, I will be emailing out these intergovernmental agreements for the duplication process or for borrowing the barcode duplicator kits. We're planning on listing everything on one DocuSign document with the specific details, and then your library can make your choice in that document, letting us know which next steps we'll be taking. We were planning on sending them separately, the publics and specials and academics, sorry, I'm drawing a blank there, will be sent now. And then we're planning to send the schools once schools are back in session so that it's not buried in their inbox with that duplicate or with the DocuSign. Next week, IHLS will add the group purchase and member discount details to our website for the libraries who wish to purchase additional barcodes, resin ribbon, or duplicator kits. And then in mid to late August, we'll begin this barcode duplication process at the hubs, and we'll begin the checkout of those barcode duplicator kits in Polaris. And this kind of depends on when we receive this first shipment of all of the order of duplicator kits. We have placed that order with BaseScan, and they are working on getting them ordered and getting them programmed to be able to send them to us. But they did indicate on the competitive bid that it would take 4 to 6 weeks before we could receive those. So as soon as we get more firm dates with that, we'll be announcing that to all of our members. And then late winter and spring 2025, the first machine will be installed in Edwardsville. And then late spring or summer, the second machine will be installed in Champaign. And then late summer or fall 2025, the third machine will be installed in Carbondale. At that time, we're hoping that the majority of the barcodes for transit can be moved externally. And then once we confirm that full functionality of the machines, the IHLS staff will turn off delivery transit receipt paper printing functionality. And this is just for the delivery transit slips. The receipt paper for your patrons, that will still stay on and will still be up to your library to determine how you want to handle that portion of it. As far as when we get these more specific dates in place, we'll of course update this timeline on our website, and we'll announce it in the member connection so that all libraries can be up to date on when we have more definite details for these dates. All right, the revised delivery guidelines. So we did send a memo, or I'm sorry, an email in the member connection about these revised delivery guidelines, and these can be found on the IHLS Delivery website under our delivery guidelines. So the two that kind of are effective immediately, I should say, is the outside barcode placement. Now, this is kind of, it's a tricky one because it's like, yes, we want outside barcode placement for all new items, but we do understand that you don't have the duplicators and you can't have outside barcodes if you don't have a method to do that. So it's not like, as of right now, you need to be concerned about not being in compliance with the outside barcode placement. I just wanted to get that effective immediately for new items so that libraries did understand that this was a change and we do need to start making steps for the outside barcode placement. So all items should have an external barcode visibly placed on the exterior of the item. The preferred placement is horizontally in the front top left corner of the item. And then I did want to add that last night it dawned on me that we don't have anything in here about the exemption for the RFID libraries. So we'll need to include something about an RFID exemption for share libraries, because those members who do already have RFID, you do not need to be worried about having external barcodes because the RFID that can be read by Polaris can be read by the machine. Now, if you do have RFID that's not utilized for Polaris and is just used for like inventory tracking purposes, then you do need to make sure you have outside barcodes. And if you have any questions about that, just reach out to me directly, please. And then we also wanted to include an ISBN barcode consideration, that it's recommended that the ISBN barcode on any item should not be obscured or covered up. Okay, the following additional guidelines will go into effect after the installation of the IHLS 3 automated material handling system machines. There'll be a transit label exemption for share members, and these items that go through IHLS delivery within the share consortium are exempt from requiring a transit label. And then we also have a rubber bands consideration, and that it's recommended to eliminate the use of rubber bands on any items intended for IHLS delivery. Next, we'll review the barcode duplication details. All right, why is duplication needed? So outside barcodes are needed for the materials to be sorted by the automated system. And all share member materials, which is approximately 97.35% of our materials in delivery, will be sorted by these machines. If your library is not a member of share, the duplication and external placement does not apply to you. And what are your options? Duplicating barcodes for your library as an item's passed through an IHLS hub at the delivery department. So we can duplicate those barcodes for you. Or you can choose to duplicate the barcodes at your library with the loaned duplicator kit and then some supplies that we'll provide for you. Option 1, duplicating the barcodes at the IHLS hubs. Once we get that intergovernmental agreement signed, the owning library name will be changed to all caps in Polaris. And this will be the way that our sorting staff will determine which items we can duplicate and which items we do not need to touch. Once those duplicated barcodes will be done, we'll do that by placing them on the top left front of the item, and the current barcode will remain in the same place. And that barcode will just be duplicated using this barcode duplicator system and applying the duplicated one on the front cover. Your library name will not be printed on the duplicated barcode, and your library barcode symbology would not be applied. And here's a visual example of what some of those might look like. So you can see here, this barcode, they may have had like a space here and a space here. It'll be all numbers just printed all together. But no matter what the number of digits, those same number of digits will be applied. It just would not have the spacing convention. And then for specific placement of the barcodes, if it's going to obscure that title information, first we'll check to see if the information appears elsewhere in that volume. For example, if there's a title page. If the information is elsewhere, then the barcode will continue to be placed in the upper left corner, allowing some of that information to be obscured. And if the title information is not found elsewhere in the volume, then barcode placement will be slightly changed so that the title information can be read. I did want to note here too, and I don't think we listed that specifically anywhere in this presentation, that we have a custom size of barcodes that we're ordering here for this project, and they're a lot smaller than the normal size barcodes that we would typically order through Bayscan. They had a custom order that they had created for the Las Vegas library, and they use them for their outside barcode placement. And so we wanted to make sure we use the smallest possible barcodes too. So that's what we're planning to do. Okay, option 2 for the loaned equipment. Once that intergovernmental agreement is signed, IHLS will send you instructions on how to reserve your barcode duplicator kits through Polaris. The library will need to send a picture of your current barcode to Bayscan if you would like that custom programming with your name and the spacing symbology. And I do want to add that this may take a few days for them to process, since they'll have, maybe 30 libraries at one time potentially. So please maybe plan in advance when you're looking at, when you are in line, and sending that to Bayscan in advance, so you do already have that kind of coding ready to go whenever you get your machine. IHLS will send you for free the number of barcodes and resin ribbons that are equal to that 2023 unique items in delivery, and we'll review that specific detail here in a bit. If the barcoding for the entire collection, if you're planning to barcode for your entire collection, additional barcodes can be purchased through BayScan with that group purchase pricing. Obviously, you can use whatever barcodes you want to use, but we did kind of negotiate and include that as part of that group purchase to have a specific pricing for our members. Okay, so some specific details for when you're making these reservations in Polaris. We recommend that the library director or the staff member who's in charge of this duplication process be the person to reserve this kit in Polaris. So that's kind of to ensure if we need to contact someone about the details, we know who to contact specifically, and then they're the person that will be getting those reminders as well. We're planning the kits to be available for 30-day loan periods, and then we're choosing to make a couple different quantities available. Some libraries may only want one duplicator at a time, some may want 2, or some may want 4. We're choosing right now a max of 4 kits, and then you can elect whatever quantity you want whenever you're making that reservation. We have a total of 38 duplicators that will be available between the IHLS hubs, but we are planning to list all 3 quantities available at each hub. And so it's important to maybe note that you'll want to make sure you're choosing your hub when you're making that reservation, just to kind of eliminate that transit period of transferring from hub to hub. So you can get the duplicator a little bit quicker if it stays within the same hub. When selecting that kit, you'll need to make sure that the correct hub and the correct quantity is chosen. And if you, for some reason, would to accidentally choose the wrong item, then you would need to lose your place in line to change over to the right hub. Obviously, you can stay in the wrong hub if you want to. We're just trying to reduce the chances of it needing to transfer from hub to hub to get more time at the libraries. And then if for some reason you want additional time to duplicate your entire collection and it's not able to be done in that 30 days, you can go ahead and reserve that kit again. There's no limit in the number of times you can reserve the kit. However, I do want to stress that right now, we really should focus on the items that all libraries need to get done to change over for the largely circulated items. And then you can get back in line later. But we do want to make sure that all libraries have had an opportunity to get the kits before you're getting back in line to reserve it again for another time. Okay, let's review the group purchase details. IHLS conducted a competitive bid for the purchase of duplicators, and included that was the group purchase pricing for our members. And this group purchasing is for additional barcodes or resin ribbons for if you choose to do your entire collection, other than just the popular items. And then barcode duplicators if you choose to just go ahead and purchase your own machine to have at your own hub. The pricing and details should be published by next week. And I did want to mention that the vendor is BayScan Technologies. Okay, so this portal for determining the number of unique items. In the last member connection, we published an article about this, and those unique number of items will help us determine the number of barcodes and resin ribbons that we will send you for free if you choose to do your own barcoding at your library. If you go to the website from this link and choose that drop down there that's selected, you'll first have to deselect all the libraries on that list. And then after deselecting, you can choose all of your library branches, and you'll be able to see the number of items circulated in delivery during 2023. So, for example, Belleville Public Library, they have a main and a west branch, and they had to select both of their branches to see their grand total. Their total was 13,696 items during 2023 that left their library. So we would send them that many barcodes and resin ribbons for free. Now, obviously, we can't just send them exactly 13,696 because we cannot split up that roll of barcode labels. We have to send them a full roll of barcodes so they can properly feed through the printer. So each roll of barcode labels and resin ribbon will print 3,500 barcodes during I just realized I didn't even explain the barcodes of resin ribbon, but you'll need the barcode labels, and then the resin ribbon is what imprints on the barcode. So each time you print a barcode, the resin ribbon changes and the barcode prints through too. So each different of those would print 3,500 barcodes. So in this example, Belleville would be getting 4 rolls of barcodes and 4 resin ribbons. And let's say, for example, Belleville had a total of 100,000 items total in their collection, and they wanted to go ahead and do their entire collection now. So they would need a total of 29 resin ribbons and barcode labels, and they would need to order 25 additional from Basecamp. So this portal is how you'll kind of use to determine how many rolls you'll be getting for free. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to just reach out to me directly about that. Okay, intergovernmental agreements. An intergovernmental agreement is a formal contract between 2 or more government agents or public agencies that work together to share and solve problems. So an IGA will be required with any library prior to IHLS duplicating barcodes for your library, or before your library can borrow a loaner duplicator kit from IHLS. All right, let's move on to questions submitted. All right, the first question. Once IHLS is up and running, what is the deadline libraries will be given to finish rebarcoding our materials before IHLS starts externally rebarcoding our items as they come through with internal barcodes? So at this time, we're not planning to duplicate any barcodes unless your library has completed an IGA, the Intergovernmental Agreement. You have to give permission for IHLS to do this on your behalf. And it's our goal to have all these external barcodes on most materials by next fall when we have that 3rd installation installed. So, however, at that time, if we need to reassess the situation after this full implementation to determine any next steps, we'll be taking them then. Question 2. For those of us libraries with limited staff, who will need to think about time allocation, retasking considerably ahead of time, how soon will you announce the schedule for lending out rebarcoding kits? So libraries will soon have access to those kits in the Polaris system once we complete those intergovernmental agreements, and those have been finalized. We expect those to go out to all share members by the end of this month. And then once that IGA is signed, we'll send you those detailed instructions on how to reserve it in Polaris. So once you have made that reservation in Polaris, you'll be able to track, who's all in line in front of you, knowing that everybody has those 30-day periods. So if you're not yet ready and prepared to begin that duplication at your hub, it might be wise to just wait for a couple other libraries to get in line ahead of you, because we'll be ready to be able to send out all those 38 duplicators for those first people who are in line. So you'll kind of have to track, unfortunately, that way to know when you would be able to get those duplicators. My library is not a member of SHARE, and I put in here we're a standalone library because that's how we often refer to them there. What does that mean for me with the AMHS? So none of the process for barcode duplication should directly impact standalone libraries, other than the fact that hopefully delivery turnaround will eventually get a little faster for them too. Standalone members will not need to move their barcodes externally though. Question 4, is it possible to sort by hand materials? I'm sorry, I messed that up. Is it possible to sort hand materials that have protective covering? For example, our teacher literature guides are sent through delivery in an envelope to protect them from additional cover damage. So we're not planning to hand sort those items. And however, the machines are actually designed to handle materials at least as gently as our staff, if not even more so, which might be as a surprise. So right now, when our sorters are sorting materials, they stay in one place during that initial sorting process. And that results them in like tossing the materials into multiple different bins across the table, which is a distance of several inches. And this is just for efficiency to be able to stay in one place and toss them into the bins. So the drop from the AMHS conveyor belt down to the tub is often going to be smaller than those number of inches that the book or the material might be dropped by a sorter, which then results in it actually being handled a little bit more gently than you might imagine. So if you do want to send them in an envelope, we ask that you either barcode the outside of the envelope, or another alternative might just be to invest in some protective plastic clear envelopes, and then you can use whatever item you want to put in that envelope, and then the AMH could still read that through the clear colorless envelope. This question was, could we reproduce a timeline and a general plan that was in the newsletter for a better, more printable version? So we did make that for you. There's now a printable link on the top of the website there. If you go to our website, the AMH page, and then you click on that project timeline and you click to expand it over there, there's a printable version right there at the top of that timeline. Okay, our barcodes are already on the outside of the items, just in the upper right-hand corner. Am I understanding correctly that we would not have to move those barcodes? So that's correct. Anywhere on the outside would suffice other than the spine. All right, question 7. Which type of tape should we use to protect a sticker barcode on the outside of the book? We plan on using our recently purchased Dimco barcodes now and in the future. So I'll give an answer about the Dimco, but I did want to point out that if you use the base scan barcodes, then no protectors are required at all. So these base scan barcodes that we're ordering are made with a permanent acrylic, and that's an adhesive for the glue part. And then the barcode itself is made of these polypropylene materials, and those are designed specifically to prevent separation from an item, tearing of the label, any type of scratching on it, or even fading. So of course we prefer using these type of external barcodes purchased from Base Scan, but I understand completely if you do not want to waste your supply. So if you want to use those, some of the options that were recommended by other members in that outside barcode were either the Dimco clear non-glare label protectors, the Dimco ultra aggressive glossy label protectors, book tape, laminate book wrap, scotch tape, or even book covers itself. But make sure that you're printing those barcodes with that thermal transfer process, or you will have issues with barcodes fading in the sunlight. All right, question 8. We haven't had any significant delays in recent years with delivery and have been very happy with the quality of service. What delivery impacts do you foresee in the next 2 years now that the AMH has passed or has been approved? Hiring and retaining new sorting staff, libraries not supplying items, implementation of the barcode duplication. So obviously that's great to hear that you haven't had delays, but others have though. And while sorting delays have not yet been evident in all of our IHLS hubs, that's probably not going to be the case sooner rather than later. So the introduction of this sorting machine will help members in the next 2 years. They'll be seeing that cost saving without delivery transit slips. We'll be having a faster turnaround after holidays and weekends, and we'll have more accurate sorting. We do not expect this barcode duplication project at the IHLS hubs to slow down the process of turnaround time on materials, because we are planning to hire additional staff specifically for this barcode duplication process, so it does not slow it down. Okay, in my email to you, this was a member library who had emailed me separately, and I emailed them back. I was concerned about the feature of the AMHS that would sort to the building level. You said that it might not, and you really didn't know. There are libraries out here discussing getting rid of their receipt paper, not planning on buying receipt paper, etc., because of statements made that the paper tickets won't be necessary anymore. Can you say for certain that receipt printers and their paper will be going away? So that is correct as far as transit slips. Transit slips will no longer be printed, and they will not be required whenever we have the machines fully implemented. Until we have those machines implemented, we will still require transit slips, and they will still be turned on. I do want to say that we are planning to provide branch level sorting though. We've kind of discussed it back and forth, and at the time of this email, we really weren't sure yet how branch level sorting would work. So we're still finalizing the solution with the vendor, but no matter what, I want to assure all members that we're committed to finding a solution that does not burden you. We're not planning on leaving you to figure it out. How are you going to sort materials without any transit slips? So if for some reason the branch level solution would not work and we weren't able to sort by branches, then their vendor has a solution that they could auto apply transit slips at the IHLS hubs. And so the materials would still come to you with transit slips and IHLS would have to apply those. So either way, we're going to figure out a solution. We're not leaving it for you to figure that out. I did want to note, though, that the use of receipts for patrons will not be impacted or affected at all by this AMHS. So if the library uses those currently for the sticky receipt paper for their patrons, that functionality will still be on. You'll still be able to use that. And those are not going away. I realized yesterday when I was talking about this that in my mind, when I say receipt paper, I'm meaning all the delivery receipt paper, whereas from the library perspective of things, receipt paper might be receipt paper, not just for delivery. So delivery transit labels are going away. Receipt papers for your patrons are not going away at all. And when you check items in, you'll still be able to get those receipts printed. All right, please clarify the down the route. Will that be still needed and will be utilized on each route, or is that going away? I'm assuming that this person means the delivery on the go. That's commonly referred to sometimes as down the route. And we are definitely planning on continuing that service. So when an item is processed at the library before it's leaving your library, there's that screen that pops up that says, are you sure you want to transfer this status to in transit to this library? So right there on that screen, you'll still be able to see which library it's going to before you press that key to change that status. So you'll still be able to use delivery on the go. You'll just have to look at it on your screen and know then before you change that status. Okay, so since member libraries are autonomous from IHLS and we make our own decisions, can the new delivery guidelines be changed from all items should have an external barcode visibly placed on the exterior of an item to IHLS encourages outside barcodes? These are just guidelines and no one wants their library to not be in compliance, especially since you are encouraging libraries to just switch the items that go out in delivery more often than the ones that don't. So the IHLS delivery guidelines, those are determined by IHLS, and those are separate and unrelated to the internal policies or procedures that each library has. So our delivery guidelines are specifically designed for items that are in transit, and they're essential for every library participating in IHLS to follow. So I think it's crucial here to understand that these guidelines, if they're not adhered to, it does impact all of our members, not just one member or those who are a part of SHARE. So as we move forward, our dedicated sorting staff will naturally decrease as that planned attrition, and our capacity to continue to manage high volume hand sorting will inevitably be impacted. So it's our collective responsibility as all members to ensure that libraries, especially our standalone partners who count on us for prompt deliveries, do not experience these delays. So I think by together embracing these changes, we can uphold this spirit of cooperation and mutual respect, and we can ensure that every library within our network will continue to offer the exceptional service. So these guidelines are just for materials in transit. That's one thing I wanted to stress here, and they're not necessarily for your entire collection. So you would still be in compliance if you have items on the outside. Okay, will another library change a barcode for me? I wanted to bring this up too because that was an interesting question, because we definitely do not want member libraries changing or doing any barcode duplication for other libraries. So if when an item is returned to your library that is not owned by you, please do not change their barcode placement. Only complete the duplication for your library owned materials, and the same on the IHLS end. We won't change your barcode unless you have asked us to do that in that intergovernmental agreement. Okay, time for live Q&A. That was all I had for previously submitted questions. I think I should hopefully be able to answer that, Kate. I got it. Yeah, I got that open. So delivery not listed in L2. Susan, or maybe she said it further. I don't know what she means by that. Delivery is not listed in L2. Is she maybe, because that was at the beginning, might be returned, or go ahead.
I was going to say, I basically went out and looked at my profile for tasks that I'm responsible for. Delivery is not listed in L2.
Okay, it's a specific title that says System Delivery Contact. And gosh, I
It does not
probably,
say delivery. It says system contact. I just looked. I've got my profile up. Just a moment. I'll bring it up here.
huh, I wonder if L2, I know L2 has been making some
Yeah.
changes.
Susan, if you don't mind, and Colleen.
Oh, there it is. It just, okay.
Okay,
It's
I was
under
gonna say,
key
I
contact.
know.
I just
Yep.
found it.
Okay,
It's
great.
system
Okay,
delivery contact. It's under
perfect.
regional system. It wasn't under, but there was no way I couldn't see to choose it, but it's now listed in this stuff. So you're right. I missed it the first time. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, and there are specific step-by-step instructions on how to do that on our website, and they'll be linked here in this PowerPoint.
I did throw several questions out in the chat, so just let me know when you're ready for my next one.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Colleen, did you want me to group them together? Did you want to go
Oh,
through?
if you already have them grouped, go right ahead. Yeah,
Oh.
if you want to lay them off for me, that's great.
Yeah, so there's some that kind of go together, but I'm gonna ask that can you restate the barcode types, the thermal transfer versus thermal printing, and which one should be taped over?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So there's direct thermal printing, which essentially when it prints that receipt, it just prints to the top of that, or to the barcode. It just prints directly to the top of that barcode. It does not embed the ink inside the barcode. So if you're using the direct thermal printing process for your barcodes, you probably do want protectors for sure. I can't really speak on to how well using that direct thermal process will keep them from fading in the sunlight. I do know though that when we were researching this entire project, we found out for sure you want to use a thermal transfer process when using outside barcodes to prevent them from fading. And that's what these base scan duplicators that we're buying will do. So they basically, using that resin ribbon, it embeds the ink inside the barcode and it prevents it from fading because it's got that protective covering over top of it already.
Okay, I'm going to ask some questions about the option 1 and the option 2 for
Sure.
barcode duplicating. So if somebody in the initial survey chose one option, would they be able to change their mind?
Absolutely, yes. We knew that when they did that initial survey, that was just kind of getting an approximate idea of what you might be wanting to do. It is no problem at all to change your mind. And just make sure whenever you're choosing that IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, that is the option you want, because that's what we'll be going off of.
Can they choose a combination? For example, if they want to do part of their own, but they also would like IHLS to help as well. Is there a combo?
If you want to, yes. I was making the assumption that a lot of libraries that want to do their own duplication want to have their library name, want to have that custom spacing, and so they did not wish to have a mixed collection of some barcodes without their name, some barcodes without mixed spacing. If that's what I keep hearing from member libraries and they do want that, we will offer both. But I just kind of was assuming that that was the reason why libraries wanted to do it on their own.
Okay, and there will be more details about that as it goes further along in the process, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, mostly what we've listed here is what we're planning on listing on those intergovernmental agreements once we get those back from legal. Unless they have something more detailed that they think we need to list, what I've listed here today are kind of the basics of what we're planning to list in those intergovernmental agreements. And obviously, since this is our first time going through this, if there are more details that you think need to be listed, if there's more questions, please reach out to me, because I'm only going through with what we've heard from feedback. So, yeah.
And so the choosing option 1 and 2, there's a couple more questions. People want to know how long IHLS will be duplicating the barcodes. How will all of our items make it through the system?
Yep.
And let's see, and there's one. Okay, that's for those are questions about option 1. So
Okay.
how long will IHLS be duplicating, and will all the items eventually make it through?
Yep. So on the intergovernmental agreement, we're planning to keep through December 31st, 2025. And obviously at that point, we'll need to reassess, and really we'll be reassessing once that third machine is installed anyways, and determining how's our progress looking? How many items are still coming through without outside barcodes? So right now on those intergovernmental agreements, we're listing December 31st, 2025, and we'll reassess then. And the goal here for when IHLS is doing it is to just do the items that are circulating through delivery, because you might find when you're starting to look at those unique items, sometimes it's less than 10% of your collections that are actually circulating outside of your library. So in my mind, why change everything to the outside if it's not going through delivery? So our plan was just to kind of continue to duplicate as items come through delivery. And you're not supposed to just be sending bulk items in or anything. It's just as an item being transited from one library to another library, we'll see that all caps and we'll know that we need to duplicate this for that library. So we'll go ahead and duplicate it. So at any point, we're not planning on just sending in large bins of items because you want to get them duplicated. We're just planning on changing them only as they're going through delivery.
Okay, and there's one more about option 2, and then I do have another subject that,
Sure.
but what option 2, okay. I think you might have answered that. For future books going out through interlibrary, would we be required to have the barcode on the outside of the book, or would they be duplicated for us free of charge at the hub?
Yeah, as of right now, we're not planning to do that. We're obviously we'll have to reassess and see how this whole process is going over the next year. But as of right now, we're feeling optimistic, hopefully, that we can get a large portion of this done in this time frame. But we'll see how it goes. So
excellent, thank you. And I want to thank everyone who's attending and using the Q&A. That has been very helpful for me as the moderator. And I thank everybody. We are trying to get to all your questions. Colleen, there are a lot of questions in the chat about rubber bands because libraries use rubber bands to oftentimes keep audiovisual materials together.
yes,
Sometimes those cases do not have a long life and discs can easily fall out. So people are concerned about the lack of rubber bands and the cost of potentially replacing those items. Will IHLS be willing to get protective coverings for those items? And there was, and will IHLS and share pay for those items that are lost or damaged due to not being able to be held together with rubber bands?
right. So the main issue with rubber bands, I talked to the vendor about this, is that if people use rubber bands, the way items go down that conveyor belt is with rubber bands. So it will slow down that item, and then missorting will start to happen, and an item would be dropped in the wrong bin potentially because the conveyor belt thinks it's going down to the right bin or to the correct bin, but it's not because the rubber band's impacting that being sorted down the belt. That's the way I'm understanding it. So that's why we've decided to just go ahead and remove them. I have talked about the fact, with a couple different people who currently have sorting machines. Do you have an issue with CD cases opening up? Do you have an issue? And everyone keeps reporting to me that this is not an issue and they have not had that, because that drop is a lot smaller than what I think a lot of people are envisioning. And the machine is a lot softer, I think, too, than what we're thinking. Obviously, if we decide to remove these rubber bands and it does start a problem, we're going to have to figure out a solution. We're definitely not just going to continue to replace and damage items. That's not at all what we want to do here. We want to make sure we're sorting them safely and we're protecting the items. But I obviously don't want missorting to continue to happen either. So the way I'm understanding it from the vendor is that they do not recommend using rubber bands. So that's why we included that in there. So I think that that'll be something that we'll just have to address as we get the machines and see how it works with the testing. But I wanted to go ahead and make it clear now that this is something we're considering with the machine and we've heard from the vendor.
And that also includes the ILDS items.
Does not. ILDS is excluded completely because they're not on Polaris, and those materials would be sorted. Those will continue to be hand sorted. So only share items. Like if you're a share member and you're sending something to ILDS, that's not included at all. That won't be read by Polaris. That won't be read by the machine. So if you're a share member sharing with ILDS, that's separate and that will still continue to be hand sorted.
Okay. And so those were the ones I could group together. So I'm going to go ahead and start asking from chronological. So we are placing the barcode on the edge of the spine gutter vertically, not on the spine, but next to it. Is that okay?
Yeah, that should be fine. Yep. As close to the spine as possible is completely fine. We just didn't want libraries to start putting it on that side spine and then the machine wouldn't be able to read it from the top or the bottom. So as long as you can see it from the top or the bottom, it can be read by the machine.
Okay. What is the cost for custom programming from Bayscan?
Oh, that's included in the price. So no member library would have to include that custom programming or pay anything for that. Bayscan included that as part of the pricing. Then when we purchase the machines, so every library can reach out to them and have that done free of charge.
Okay. How much does a barcode duplicator machine cost? Should a library
I
want to
didn't mention that exact cost. Let me pull that up. We've been waiting to get the final details from Bayscan to upload on our website, but I do have the pricing here. A wireless duplicator is $757.25, and that includes the printer that will plug in, and then the wireless Bluetooth scanner, and then a wireless numeric keypad as well. And then that programming obviously is included as well with that. And then just for reference as well, I have that screen pulled up. The resin ribbon for the wireless duplicator that will print about 3,500 barcodes, that is $8.50 each. And then the roll of the barcodes that includes 3,500 barcodes is $37.50. We did include a wired option if libraries prefer to have a wired option, but those print, the resin ribbons are a lot longer. They're actually 984 feet, which is like 4 times the amount of a wireless one. And I'll leave that detail out for now, but all this will be listed on our website as soon as we get that final approval from Bayscan to upload that.
Okay, so can you explain again, because you're talking about purchasing and potential costs, can you explain again what costs are transferred to the IHLS members? Are IHLS members incurring any costs in this process, or is it optional for them to?
Yeah, it's optional. So the only cost that you might pay for is if you want to go ahead and duplicate your entire collection now so that all of your barcodes on the outside. So that would be the only cost that you're paying for. As far as share member fees, no portion at all goes to the AMHS. That's completely separate. It's IHLS Delivery that's paying for this project and paying for all the barcode implementation and all of that. No portion of share fees goes to that. And we will be providing for you for free. If you choose to do it at your own library, we'll provide you the barcode duplicator system. We'll provide for you the resin ribbon and the barcode labels for free, equal to the number of items that circulated outside of your library in 2023.
Would it be possible for us to cut the current barcode out of the inside of the item and put it on the outside?
If that's what you want to do, you're welcome to do that. Obviously, we prefer the duplicator method, so you don't have to cut it out. But I've heard that some libraries have done that successfully. So not necessarily preferred, but if that's what you want to do, you're welcome to do that. As long as the barcode's on the outside, it would work.
Okay. Will there be any grants offered to libraries who can't afford to duplicate barcodes for our entire collection? For example, they have this many in the collection, but that portal, and the number that they had was a significant amount less than their total collection. How will they know what are the quote right items to pick to rebarcode?
Yeah, that is a tricky question. And unfortunately, there is no report in Polaris to specifically say these are the items that always circulate outside your library. The biggest funding that IHLS is putting forth is to actually just let IHLS do that duplication for you. So that's our way of providing this kind of grant to allow libraries to get their collections duplicated. Because our biggest thing is that we need it for delivery. You don't need to have necessarily all your outside barcodes on your outside for your entire collection. The importance is to get items for delivery duplicated. So that's what we're focusing on here now.
So that'll be most likely the most popular items?
Correct. Yep.
How can I tell if my barcodes are thermal printed? If I purchase them pre-printed, how do I know if they're thermal?
Maybe send me the details and I'm happy to investigate and look into that. Every barcode vendor is different and if I will say, if you purchase them from Bayscan, I know that they're thermal transfer printed, but anyone else, I'm really not sure. So I'm happy to look into that and find out those details.
Okay, let's see. We have a suggestion that rubber bands, that they would like a clear or a group purchase of clear envelopes.
Oh, okay. Yep, we can work on getting that.
And then if we are unable to duplicate all our barcodes and a year from implementation, we have books that come up that are not duplicated and need to be transferred. Do we have to re-barcode the item as opposed to being able to duplicate the barcode?
We're unable to duplicate all of our barcodes and say a year from implementing, we have all of those. No, we're not necessarily, well, it's a tricky question. If you're doing it yourselves and you're wanting to do that yourselves instead of letting IHLS do it for you, then it would be kind of hard to just determine. But our plan is to try to get majority of the items so we don't have to hand sort. But if for some reason you don't have a machine and you can't duplicate the barcode, obviously we're just going to have to hand sort it. We can't auto apply that for you. So I hope that answered that.
Okay, got a couple of short ones. Thank you, Susan, for bringing up the fact that it's not just popular items, but unique items as well that will most likely be going through. Can you repeat the cost of the roll of the barcodes?
Yes, the roll of barcodes is $37.50. And I did want to add here, because in my mind, it was kind of like, if you're a person that buys different type of barcodes and then protective covers, the reason why that costs a little bit higher is because you don't have to do both. So whenever you're considering the cost of buying the protective covers and then buying cheaper barcodes, the cost might actually be a little bit more favorable for you.
Okay, and then the last question that we have in right now is, so they do not want to choose option 1 and have IHLS barcode any of their items.
Okay.
And then ask, does the staff just deny pass on the hold if the hold settles on an older item that I haven't had the chance or we haven't gotten the funds to re-barcode externally after fall 2025? And so then if there's only one staff member that will be duplicating, changing barcodes, and if one of them happens to throw an internally barcoded item in the bin, what's going to happen to it?
Yeah, so we'll just have to continue hand sorting at that time. So we're at no point is IHLS right now, that's not our intention, to auto apply barcodes to anyone's. So we want to respect what you want to do to your items for your library. And I certainly don't want you to have to say, no, we cannot loan this item because of the fact that you don't have an external barcode and you didn't have a duplicator then to change it. So we'll just have to continue hand sorting. But obviously I want to stress that it's going to take up more time to hand sort, and that's why we are switching to this process. So it would be helpful if it's possible to get those materials done.
Okay, there were a couple in the chat that came through.
Okay.
And so since the Q&A is empty, I was able to switch over to the chat. So if barcodes are Demco, what do you do to be able to use them on the outside of the book?
Okay, yeah, let me go up to, if I can. Oh, I didn't list all that there. I'll be making sure. I have not updated the FAQ on our website. I need to get time to finish that. But specifically, I listed some Demco outside protective. Let me find that question. Where was that? The top rated one from Demco is the clear non-glare label protectors. So those will work, and those are what Demco specifically approves and says it's good for protecting a barcode. They're the Demco clear non-glare label protectors. You could also use the Demco ultra aggressive glossy label protectors. That's what other libraries have reported who currently have outside barcodes. That's what they say they use. And then they've also used book tape or laminate book wrap or Scotch tape or book covers.
Okay, and then another question came in that is about, again, the longevity of how long IHLS will be duplicating these barcodes. So we know the big push is going to be this first year
Correct.
when we're duplicating like crazy.
Yeah.
But whenever items come in after that, will the duplicating of barcodes on the IHLS end be a long-term project, or will IHLS stop duplicating barcodes
Yeah.
as items come in?
We're just going to have to assess that. Obviously, we're not going to leave the libraries to just figure it out. We're going to have to work together after this first initial push of getting everything duplicated and reassess then to determine how things are going. So unfortunately, I don't really know what it's going to look like and how long it will take us to continue to do this. So we will work together though.
Okay, that was the only questions that I see. There was a comment about Scotch tape on books, which I know there is the removable tape, which is preferable to the regular Scotch tape by far. And yeah, so Colleen, if anyone, or if you want to share your contact information.
Yeah. And you know what?
Oh, and
I did forgot about that too. One thing I was thinking about today, although I hate doing another survey, I was thinking it would be really helpful for the larger libraries that do think they would want 2 quantity or 4 quantity. If you could maybe fill that out in this really short survey that I just created, because I'm trying to determine how many of those to set aside. And I hate to set aside, you know, a large portion of our 38 to 4 quantity or 2 quantity, and then that leaves not that many 1 quantity for libraries to reserve. So I think it would be helpful if maybe you could tell me if you're planning on doing the 4 quantity or the 4 or 2 quantity. Oh, did you already list it? Yes. No? Yes, you did, I think. Okay.
yeah,
Is that what's in the chat there? Okay.
yes, I just
So
put
that's
that in.
that barcode duplicator survey. If you please could fill that out with your library name, and it's okay if it's not a definite answer and you don't yet know. I'm just trying to kind of gauge when we're setting these up in Polaris, how many of the 4 and 2 we should set up. And then I'm just kind of make the assumption that if libraries did not choose 4 or 2, they're wanting to just loan 1 at one time. So.
And then
Yeah,
the other form for additional questions, Colleen, you might not, you'll need to tweak that a little bit. We said not accepting responses.
Oh, yeah, because I probably changed the date. Thank you, Kate. I'll go change that right now. It's the same link. So if what we answer today, or you think of other questions after the fact, please go and use that same link that's in this L2 meeting, and I'll change the settings right now to change. There's no end date. And then you can submit it via that same link. And if it's something we haven't yet considered or something you're thinking about later, please just continue to use this form as a way to submit our questions so I know that you have questions. And then I'll be working on that FAQ page for our AMHS specific details, and we can upload all these questions there.
Okay, and there are 2 final questions.
Sure.
And so one is there a video of how the rebarcoder machine or the duplicators work, so we can see how quickly that process is going to go? And then following up, another person asks, how long does it take to duplicate barcodes?
Oh, you know what? Those are both really good questions. We haven't yet got the wireless one. So we had a wired loaner machine from Bayscan. And so I didn't want to make a video with it looks different than what the wireless one's going to get. So as soon as we get this wireless one in, we will make a video so you can see how that process might look. And then the actual process of doing the duplication is kind of simplistic. So basically you would get the item that you have currently on the inside, you would open it up, you would use that scanner, scan the item, and then the machine prints out the duplicate and you apply it to the outside of the book. So we'll include specific instructions and the owner's manual and all those kind of details when we send out those duplicator kits, so that you'll know how to use them. And then I'm the type of person that likes looking at videos instead of reading all those instructions. So we've also researched and found videos with QR code links, and then all the URL details as well if you don't use QR codes, so that you can find those videos easily to be able to watch how to change that resin ribbon when it's time, how to install those barcode labels and all that kind of stuff. So the first day when we got the wired one, we sat down, a couple of us, trying to kind of get all those details figured out. And it took like 20-30 minutes just to kind of play around with the machine and get used to it. But then once you learn how to use it, it's fairly easy to just reload the machine. It's kind of similar to the receipt paper. Obviously, you have a resin ribbon though, and barcode labels, other than just one roll of receipt paper. But it's a pretty simplistic process.
Okay, and we have one last final quick question. Are ID label barcodes or ID label labels, that's the name of the company, ID label. Are those compatible?
I don't know either way. I'll look at their labels, what they have. I would assume so. It's a brand that I've heard of before, but I don't know the specific details. And I'm thinking they're just meaning using it in the duplicators that we have. I'm sure they are. I'll double check with Basescan just to make sure on that. If maybe you could send me the exact labels that you have, and I'll forward that on to Dave there at Basescan to confirm that those would be fine to use.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. It is 11:01. I did turn off the Q&A function because I know we're right at time. So I want to thank everyone. And Colleen, can you put up your slide with your contact information?
Yes. Oh yeah, whoops. Sorry, I could do that there. Yeah, there's my email right there. I'll type it in the chat too, so that's a little bit easier if you want to copy paste, as long as I don't mess that up right here. There we go. Yeah, please reach out to me if you have any questions about things or questions about how things might work. So.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording. This has been recorded and will be available. And thank you all for coming today.
All right, thanks. Bye.